Hello, friends. If you have received a letter from the Social Security Administration in the last few weeks, or if someone you know has, I need you to stay with me for the next 10 minutes because this video could save you thousands of dollars and prevent a mistake that cannot be undone. The SSA has been sending overpayment notices to beneficiaries across the country. The letters demand repayment, sometimes of amounts reaching $5,000, $10,000, even $20,000, and they give you a deadline. Most people who receive this letter do one of two things. They panic and pay immediately, or they ignore it assuming it will go away. Both of those responses are wrong, and both of them can cost you everything. There is a third option that the SSA does not explain in the letter. It protects you, it pauses the collection, and in many cases it results in the demand being reduced or eliminated entirely. But you have to know it exists, and you have to act within a specific window. That is exactly what I'm going to walk you through today. Before we get into it, if you are not subscribed to this channel, please do that right now and turn on the bell notification. Here is why it matters specifically for what is happening right now. The SSA overpayment situation is evolving. The rules around who must repay, how much, over what timeline, and what appeal rights exist have been changing in 2026, and they will continue to change. When those changes happen, the SSA does not send you a follow-up letter explaining your new options. They update the policy and expect you to already know. What I do on this channel is track those policy changes and bring them to you in plain language before the deadlines pass and before the wrong decision is already made. The people who are subscribed here find out in time. The people who aren't tend to find out after they've already sent a check they didn't have to send, or after the appeal window closed while they were still trying to understand what was happening. Hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and let's get into exactly what this letter means and what you need to do. Let's start with what this notice actually is, because the language the SSA uses is confusing by default and alarming by design. The letter is called a Notice of Overpayment. It means the SSA has determined that at some point, sometimes recently, sometimes years ago, you received more in Social Security benefits than they believe you were entitled to. The difference between what you received and what they say you should have received is what they are now calling an overpayment. Here is the first thing you need to understand. An overpayment notice is not a final judgment. It is not a court order. It is not proof that you actually owe the money. It is the SSA's calculation, and that calculation can be wrong, incomplete, or based on information that has since changed. The SSA makes errors. They miscalculate income. They apply the wrong benefit rules to the wrong year. They use outdated records. They attribute income to the wrong person in a household. These are documented recurring problems, and the overpayment notice gives you the right to challenge every single number in it. The second thing you need to understand is the amount. If the letter shows a number that seems impossible, if it is claiming you were overpaid $8,000 or $15,000 over a period of years, that does not mean you have to pay $8,000 or $15,000 back immediately. The SSA has a structured repayment and waiver process, and in many cases the full amount is reduced substantially or waived entirely. But none of that happens automatically. You have to take action, and the clock starts the day the letter is dated. The most important number in this entire situation is not the dollar amount on the letter. It is 30 days. From the date on your overpayment notice, you have 30 days to request a waiver or file an appeal before the SSA begins collecting. Collection means one thing for most beneficiaries. They start withholding money directly from your monthly Social Security check, up to the full amount of your check every month until the alleged overpayment is recovered. That is not a threat. That is the default outcome if you do nothing. Now here is what the letter does not tell you clearly. Filing a request for waiver or appeal within those 30 days automatically stops the collection process while your request is being reviewed. The SSA cannot withhold from your check while a waiver or appeal is pending. That protection exists in federal regulation, but the letter does not explain it in plain terms, and most people never find out. So to be precise about what the 30-day window means, it is not just a deadline to respond. It is the window during which one action, filing a single form, freezes the entire collection process and buys you the time to properly review, challenge, or negotiate the amount. After 30 days, That protection is significantly harder to access. The SSA can begin withholding immediately. Getting that stopped after collection has started requires a separate and more difficult process. 30 days. From the date on the letter, not the date you received it, not the date you opened it, the date printed at the top of the notice. You have 3 options when you receive an overpayment notice. Understanding the difference between them is the most important thing you can do right now. Option 1 is a waiver. A waiver asks the SSA to forgive the overpayment entirely, to say that even if the overpayment happened, you should not have to pay it back. To qualify for a waiver, you need to show 2 things. First, that the overpayment was not your fault, and second, that repaying it would cause you financial hardship. The first condition is easier to meet than most people expect. If the overpayment happened because the SSA miscalculated something, used incorrect records, or failed to process a change you properly reported, that is not your fault. If you reported a change in income or living situation and the SSA continued paying the old amount, that is not your fault. The standard is not perfection. It is whether you acted in good faith. The second condition, financial hardship, applies to the majority of seniors on fixed incomes. If repaying the amount demanded would leave you unable to cover basic living expenses, that qualifies. You do not need to be destitute. You need to show that repayment would be against equity and good conscience. The form for a waiver is SSA 632. You can download it at ssa.gov or request it at any Social Security office. File it within 30 days of the notice date. Option 2 is an appeal, called a request for reconsideration. An appeal challenges the SSA's calculation itself. It says the amount is wrong, the period is wrong, or the overpayment did not occur at all. You are not asking for forgiveness. You are disputing the facts. If you believe the SSA made a calculation error, attributed someone else's income to your record, applied the wrong benefit rules, or used a period during which you were actually entitled to everything you received, an appeal is the right path. The form for a reconsideration request is SSA 561. File it within 60 days of the notice date, but file within 30 days to preserve your collection protection. Option 3 is a repayment plan. If you accept that the overpayment occurred and do not qualify for a waiver, you can request a reduced monthly repayment amount instead of having the full check withheld. The SSA is required to work with you on a payment plan that does not leave you unable to meet basic living expenses. You do not have to accept the default withholding rate. Call SSA at 1-800-772-1213 and request a modified repayment plan before collection begins. There are 4 mistakes I see people make with overpayment notices that turn a manageable situation into a financial crisis. Mistake 1. Paying immediately without verifying the amount. The SSA sends overpayment notices with errors. Before you write a check or authorize any payment, request a full explanation of how the amount was calculated. You are entitled to this information, and it is free to request. Mistake 2. Missing the 30-day window because the letter sat unopened. Social Security correspondence needs to be opened immediately. If you or someone you care for tends to let mail accumulate, this is the reason to change that habit. One unopened letter can trigger automatic withholding that takes months to reverse. Mistake 3. Assuming a waiver will be denied without trying. The SSA approves a significant percentage of waiver requests from seniors on fixed incomes. Most people never file because they assume they won't qualify. The form takes less than an hour to complete. The protection it buys while under review is immediate. There is no cost and no downside to filing. Mistake 4. Accepting the SSA's word that the overpayment is correct. The SSA makes mistakes on overpayment calculations regularly. If the number on your letter does not match your own records, your bank statements, your award letters, your earnings history, document that discrepancy and include it in your appeal. Your records are evidence. Here is exactly what to do if you have received an overpayment notice or receive one in the coming weeks. Step 1. Check the date on the letter immediately. Your 30-day window runs from that date, not from when you received it or opened it. Step 2. Do not pay anything yet. Request a full written explanation of how the overpayment amount was calculated before you take any financial action. Step 3. Decide between a waiver and an appeal. If you believe the overpayment was not your fault and repayment would cause hardship, file Form SSA 632 for a waiver. If you believe the amount or the period is simply wrong, file Form SSA 561 for reconsideration. Either filing freezes collection while it is reviewed. Step 4. If you accept the overpayment but cannot afford full withholding, call 1-800-772-1213 and request a modified repayment plan before the default withholding begins. Step 5. If you are within your window and unsure which option applies to your specific situation, contact a Social Security benefits counselor through your local area agency on aging. The service is free, and they handle exactly these situations. The overpayment notice is not the end of the road. It is the beginning of a process, and every step of that process gives you rights, options, and protections that the letter itself does not explain. If this video helped you or someone you know, please subscribe and share it immediately. Someone in your life may have received this letter this week and not yet known what to do with it. One share today could make an enormous difference. I'll see you in the next one.